So, do you compost meat?
No.
No.
Meat. It's one of the most popular foods in the world. Nearly 9 out of 10 Americans consume meat as part of their diet. In the US, meat makes up about 1/4 of food waste. Almost 30% of the meat produced is thrown into landfills every year. That's over 700,000 tons of meat. Once in these landfills, it emits methane, a potent and harmful greenhouse gas. Then why isn't meat composting more popular? And how can we raise people's awareness about meat composting at the community level? To answer this question, we decided to take a look at New York City to study how meat waste is managed at both the community and household level. In such a big, densely populated city, there seems to be a dangerous rumor, a myth that you can't compost meat. Even the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, tells American citizens not to compost meat or fish bones and scraps at home. We visited some local compost projects, organizations, and community gardens to find out what was really happening on the ground. At the Big Reuse, we were told that while the facility can compost meat scraps, it avoids accepting them because their staff is largely made up of volunteers, and the meat composting process is difficult, more complex, requires greater care, and has higher risks. But why? Meat is primarily comprised of water, protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Because protein typically makes up 20% of meat, it makes it high in nitrogen, which means it takes longer to break down than, say, vegetables. And it requires a higher amount of carbon, something like wood chips, heat, and aeration to do so. Raw meat, unlike cooked meat scraps, also runs the risk of being contaminated with bacteria, such as E. coli, Salmonella, and Listeria. It's not that New York City isn't trying to compost meat, it's that it's inconsistent, confusing, complicated, and frankly, no one knows about it. Worse, most community composting gardens do not have the machinery nor heat necessary to break down meat, dairy, and other organics that larger facilities like the Big Reuse supposedly do. Our project aims to create long-term behavioral change on 2 levels. Firstly, we purposely wanted users to physically return their meat scraps back to nature and actively engage in conversation with people in their community who share similar visions as part of creating a decentralized process of meat waste treatment. Our next steps are to incorporate it into the public school curriculum, thereby supporting the city's compost project efforts. The community garden can collaborate with kids and public schools through field trips and workshops. Our project serves to act as a bridge between people living in urban settings and the act of composting meat. We're here to say you can compost meat in New York City, and here's a simple way to do it. We took the best of bokashi, a Japanese composting method, and combined it with an already working model in New York City, community composting gardens. They're popular and already process thousands of pounds of food scraps, just not meat scraps. But we're here to change that. In Japanese, bokashi translates to fermented organic matter, and it does just that. It's an anaerobic process that uses an inoculant like sawdust to ferment meat, bones, dairy, vegetables, fruit, and more, leading to nutrient-rich compost in just 2 weeks, versus the longer process of vermicomposting and city organics collection. However, it's not perfect. Information barriers, fermentation odors, and the potential for mold deter New Yorkers from using this method widely. Our solution tackles the odor issue and increases bokashi accessibility at the community level in an effort to mainstream this practice. We used Vinegar Hill, a Brooklyn-based community garden and compost drop-off site, as an example location of how this process could be implemented. We replaced the inoculants like wood germ with coffee grounds to combat any odors. Coffee grounds are also a great substrate for the essential microbes, and they're easy to find via coffee shops surrounding the garden. Instead of a standard intrusive-looking garbage bin, we applied the Japanese wabi-sabi aesthetic to our design, incorporating irregular organic stone shapes so that it blends in with its garden environment. We incorporated 3 irregular shaped holes to combine aesthetics and usability. The top hole is for placing coffee grains. The middle and largest hole is for throwing the food and meat scraps in, and the smallest hole on the side is for releasing the bokashi tea to the soil, which is the liquid nutrients byproduct produced via the fermentation process. There's also a hidden door to open the outer shell and empty or clean the inner buckets. The outer shell is adaptive to its environment, while the inner, lightweight buckets are easily removed or replaced. Finally, we would be remiss not to touch on the psychology tied to composting meat. There appears to be a surprising, unspoken psychological hurdle toward dealing with meat waste. The more people we spoke to, the more it became apparent that because meat is so flesh-like, people subconsciously associate its decomposition with the decomposition of the human body, and therefore avoid the process altogether. We hope that Makashi's simplicity and beauty brings awareness and desensitizes the topic, helping people prioritize meat composting in a way that doesn't deviate much from their routine. We hope you enjoyed learning about Makashi and feel that much more confident and inspired to compost meat, the Makashi way. Thank you.